So everybody's been giving their opinions on it. I talked about it a little bit last night as I was approaching my house, walking home from the bus stop. And it's just I just don't really understand it, folks. I mean, is it me? It's got to be me. It's got to be me, and I'm sure others might feel the same way, but it's got to be me. Because, look, WWE is not innocent in any of this, okay? They're not innocent. The excuses sometimes they make for the men and women that get themselves into these situations is, run its course. It's run its course. Let's be honest. But, when you look at what happens outside, I mean, if you were to do a comparison, as crazy as this sounds, as crazy as this sounds, these men and women that work, that at one time in their career, multiple times in their career, work under the WWE banner, that when they are let go by WWE, whether they ask for the release, whether they are released because of certain reasons, or the contract expires and they're free to do what they want, whatever the case may be, it seems that more time than usual, that whatever troubles they get into, outside of the wrestling ring, usually occurs after they're done with WWE. Now, like I said, WWE is not so innocent. They've had a lot of issues, in the past, present, and they probably will in the future, with talent that, when you bring them in, you don't realize the baggage they might bring along with them. A good recent example is Nash Carter. What he did in the past came back to bite him, and now he's pretty much on the indies hoping for another chance in Impact, either hoping for another chance, in WWE, or maybe AEW gives him a call, who knows. But Nash Carter right now is on the indies making up, for what he's done. And he's probably getting very few bookings here and there unless somebody, calls in a favor to have him part of the booking. For example, there was a moment at the recent Wrestling Revolver show where Trey Miguel basically said he's bringing in Nash Carter for a reunion of the Rascals against the Motor City Machine Guns at a future event. Whether or not he's able to follow through on that is another story. Now, I'm pretty sure Wrestling Revolver might say, hey, as a favor to you, and I think it's owned or run by Sammy Callahan, I'm pretty sure they'll be like, okay, as a favor to you, we'll do it, but that's it. Again, there has not been, from what I understand, many bookings for Nash Carter outside of being released by WWE because of the accusations by Kimber Lee and that photograph of him posing as Hitler from 9 years ago that's come back to bite him. So again, WWE is not without its flaws. They know that when they sign somebody to a contract, that there's a good chance that somebody's going to come with some baggage. Recently, they just released the guy known as Two Dimes from NXT 2.0 and Tony D'Angelo's group. They just released him, and he had a match that was taped last week, broadcast last night. And they did that, I should say, because of policy issues. How they explain that in storyline, we'll have to see. But the point I'm getting at is a lot of wrestling companies should know that whenever they sign either a man or a woman to the roster, whether that person, I should say, is going to be an in-ring competitor or a commentator or a backstage announcer, whatever the case may be, they know that they're going to be bringing in possibly some, extensive baggage with that person, I should say. Which is why, and I'm sure they do it. I'm sure they do it to an extent, but which is why I think a lot of wrestling promotions out there should do thorough, extensive background checks. To make sure that this person that they're bringing in doesn't have a background in certain issues, so that if this person does have the issues that they have a background in, that maybe they could talk it out with that person and say, hey, we'll bring you in, but you got to clean up your act. You got to assure us that what we found out about you here in the past will not, perpetrate itself or bring itself to the surface, when you're with us or you're under our employment or signage or contractual agreement, if you will. So, what this has to do with Jeff Hardy, you might want to ask, is every wrestling promotion that Jeff and Matt have been part of, all those wrestling promotions hopefully know what they're getting themselves into. But what a lot of people will look at when you compare all the promotions that Matt and Jeff have been part of, to an extent, is that anytime Matt and Jeff were within WWE, when they were working in WWE, they had their problems. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, WWE's not innocent in this. But more times out of 10, if you will, people would say that they had less issues in WWE, or when they were part of WWE, than they did outside of it. It's like when they're outside, there's no one to really, put a leash on them and say, you ain't doing that, get back here. There's nobody to reel them in, if you catch my drift. Now, thankfully, Matt has learned his lesson, as a lot of people have pointed out, and has pretty much cleaned his act up. And Jeff, it looked like he was on the same path, but still he had his demons. He still has his issues. And whether or not he now takes into initiative, okay, everybody saw, because I'm pretty sure Jeff was made aware of the TMZ video of the police cam of his arrest and everything. Hopefully he takes into account what people are talking about, what they've seen, and he's realizing, okay, I do need to get treatment. But that's up to him. I mean, Tony Khan coming out and saying, hey, we will assist him in getting the treatment he needs. Hey, that's great to say. That's great to say, but it's up to him to get that treatment so you can assist him in doing so. And whether or not assisting him means, hey, we'll pay for the treatment, or it means, like I said, whether it's, paying for the treatment or finding him a place, close to his home to where he could do it, or maybe find a way where he could do it at home with his family. Whatever is needed to be done, yeah, I'm glad Tony Khan's taking that step. But the thing is, when you come out and you say you're willing to assist him in his treatment, that, even though that sounds good, it's the person that you're saying needs to get the treatment that should get it. Jeff is the one, Tony Khan is putting the responsibility in Jeff's hands. He's putting it in his hands to go get this treatment and clean himself up. Yes, Jeff says he's opened up to to doing so, but it's up to him to take those first steps. It's up to him to do so. But will he do it? Who knows? Heck, I have a lot of people that say, hey, it's up to me to take the first steps to get these things within, taken care of, and all that, as well as my first steps to basically, take care of some other stuff. And eventually I'm going to, but that's in my time. That's in my time. That's my choice as to when and where I do it. Okay? But the thing is, what I'm trying to say, let me rewind that. Okay. What I'm trying to say is the same could be said for Jeff. It's up to him to do the treatment. The difference between people like me and Jeff Hardy, okay, the difference is I know eventually I'm going to get this done and taken care of, and I have a lot of options around. Jeff has no options now. He has no other excuses to, basically, delay this situation. He has to go out and get the treatment. If he says he's open to do it, then Jeff has to go out and do it. He can't wait. He can't wait until another relapse happens. He has to go out and do it. If he wants to have any future in the sports entertainment professional wrestling world, he has to go out and do it. And it's not just going to affect him in the sports entertainment professional wrestling world. He has a music career, right? Outside of wrestling. It's going to affect him having any bookings, concert-wise, or what did he do at Dave & Buster's before the whole situation? Acoustic performance, whatever. It's going to cost him those kind of bookings if he doesn't get himself cleaned up. That's what it's going to do. It's going to cost him a lot of bookings. I mean, if you were to measure, hey, getting the inside of your mouth, your teeth fixed and all that over, getting yourself better, and out of the whole, alcoholic problem, guess what takes main priority? Getting yourself treatment for your alcoholic problems. That takes main priority over this. Because at least with this, you could still chew. You could still chew your food. You could still chew your food to an extent. You could still eat. You could still breathe. You're not getting treatment for your alcoholic problems. That's a problem. That's the number one problem over this. And I know some people might say otherwise, but that's a problem. That is a problem that should take number one priority, and Jeff Hardy knows that. Especially with the fact that the video cam, I should say, has come out, the police cam has come out of him acting the way he did. Hopefully that opens his eyes. Hopefully that opens his eyes. I mean, here's the thing about, okay, let me take a breather here. What I'm trying to say is, the one thing that really pisses me off, okay, the one thing that ticks me off, and I'm sure it pisses and ticks everybody else off, is the fact that all these wrestling companies, like I said, they should do extensive backgrounds. They should do extensive backgrounds on all these men and women they sign to contracts. They should, to make sure that whatever they find out doesn't get carried on over into them signing this person to a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, multi-year deal. Hopefully when they sign this person, what they found out in the past won't be an issue, in the present. But here's the thing though. What really gets me is when they do these background checks. If they do them, and I'm sure they do. But if they do these background checks and everything, what really gets me is when they sign this person to a contract, that they don't add a stipulation to that contract. And that stipulation to that contract, ladies and gentlemen, should be that I, so-and-so, agree that while under contract, I will not take drugs, I will not drink, I will be sober. I will make sure to be sober, because if I'm in one, not my third, not my second, not my fourth, not my fifth violation, but my first violation, if I violate said, ruling in this agreement, in this contract, I am, officially, rightfully terminated from said contract. That's what a lot of these wrestling, sports entertainment promotions, combat sports promotions, I should say, should put in their contracts. Put in their contracts, along with agreeing to pay so-and-so this much every year, for as long as you have them under contract, that they should also agree that they will not drink, they will not indulge in any alcoholic, beverages or whatever. They won't take drugs. And if they're in violation, the first and only violation of doing so, that's it. They're done. No more third, second, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. They're done. They leave. They're gone. That's what all these companies from WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, MLW, PWG, AAA, CMML, that's what a lot of these promotions should do. A lot of these promotions should add into contracts when they sign these talents to said contracts that not only are you agreeing to perform, for the company, and the company is agreeing to pay you for this much, a year while you're under said contract, but also have you agree that while you're working for them in some capacity, there will be no alcoholic drinking and there will be no drug taking, and if you violate that just once, you're gone. You are gone. And you know what they should also do? They should also make it, an agreement, not just among themselves and the parties they're signing, to the company, but they should make it an overall agreement across all companies in wrestling, all promotions in wrestling. Well, basically, when you agree to it in one company, it extends to another, or extends across the board. That if you violate just once, not only are you gone from that company, but you can't compete anywhere, period. Nobody can sign you to any kind of length of contract, whatever the case may be, unless you get cleaned up thoroughly, unless you are thoroughly cleaned up of your issues. And if that company does sign you and you're thoroughly cleaned up, then that company should, face should face legal issues for violating that that stipulation that goes into effect not just for the company, the previous company the person signed to, but for all of wrestling and combat sports, period. They should sign that. They should sign that agreement to where if they violate it, they're gone. They are out of the sport for the time being until they get themselves cleaned up. And then if anybody tries to sign them to a contract and they're not cleaned up, that company faces legal action. Period. You know, I don't care if you're AEW, I don't care if you're WWE, I don't care if you're UFC, you're Bellator, I don't care if you're PWG, I don't care if you're MLW or New Japan, I don't care. You know, what needs to be done is all the combat sports, period, need to come together, you know, put this additional stipulation in all the contracts to where if the man or woman violates said agreement of not taking drugs, on not indulging in alcoholic beverages while under contract, to that company, and the other company signs them, then that company should face legal action, because they're the ones responsible for allowing that person to be under contract to them, and they have yet to thoroughly clean themselves up. And this is an issue, honestly, when I think about it, they should have implemented a long time ago. They should have just implemented this, not just when the first Jeff Hardy situation happened, not when the first Jimmy Uso situation happened, or whatever. They should have implemented this back in the 80s, if not the 90s, when WWE was coming under scrutiny for steroids. Whatever athletic association should have implemented this, not just for WWE, but for every single combat sports promotion out there, from professional wrestling to mixed martial arts to boxing to kickboxing to Muay Thai, you name it. They should implement this stipulation that takes effect all across combat sports, so that it doesn't matter who you're signed with. If you screw up there, nobody can sign you nobody else can sign you unless you are thoroughly cleaned up. That should be what they implement. That is what they should put into these contracts that goes into effect all across the board. Because I guarantee you this right now, had they put that into effect a long time ago, and the situation with Jeff that happened at Victory Road 2011 even happened the way it did, Jeff would have not gone back to WWE almost, I wouldn't say immediately, but would have not been brought back to TNA, period, unless he was thoroughly cleaned up. And I mean thoroughly. Period. Heck, the same thing with WWE when he had a second violation of the agreement. He should have been let go and not signed by anybody until he's thoroughly cleaned up. And they need to do that now. Tony Khan, I get it. He suspended him without pay. That's great. That's fine. No real argument there, because one, Tony Khan sees that it's making his company look bad with all the other controversies he had in the past, and also he wants to make good with Warner Media and his new bosses there, and the new bosses there. So that's a good thing that Tony did that, as well as put the number for people that need help with that have alcoholic problems, out there. I'm glad he did that. But honestly, Tony, if I was you, I would have. Honestly, Tony, if this contract, this stipulational thing that should be added in all combat sports was in effect, was a reality, then there'd be no choice, Tony, and you know this. You would have to fire Jeff and say you can't be signed here anymore. You can't go back to WWE. You can't go here. You can't go there, because this agreement, this overall agreement, states that until you are thoroughly cleaned up, you can't do anything. And this is something that they need to implement. They need to implement it so it takes effect, and that everybody, including the big old WWE, has to abide by it, because it'll be a law. It'll be a very legal, binding, contract or agreement all across the board. And that if nobody follows it and they sign somebody that's screwed up still and has yet to clean themselves up, then that company, like I said, should face legal lawsuits. They should. Because, enough is enough. It's like when you look at all the wrestlers we have lost throughout the years, a lot of the MMA fighters we have lost throughout the years, a lot of the boxers we have lost throughout the years, kickboxers, Muay Thai fighters, everybody that we've lost, and it's all related to alcohol abuse or drug abuse or whatever. It's because we never had a freaking stipulation or a contract, overall contract across the board for all combat sports that states if you mess up once in one place, you can't go anywhere else until you are cleaned up. If that would have been put into place a long time ago, I guarantee you we'd still have a lot of people with us today. We would. We would still have a lot of people with us today. But we don't have something like that, do we? We don't have something like that. And because of that, people like Jeff, is still going to be able to wrestle once again once he gets himself cleaned up. If he chooses to do so, he's still going to be able to wrestle and all that. But, but this has to stop. This has to stop, and it has to stop now. And so I'm imploring Tony Khan, I'm imploring Nick Khan and Vince McMahon, I'm imploring Dana White, I'm imploring Andrew Yang, if he still has some couth, I'm imploring anybody out there, get some kind of agreement that expands all across the board for combat sports of any kind, sports entertainment, combat sports of any kind, that states you screw up once in one place, you can't go anywhere else. You can't. You can't do it unless you are thoroughly cleaned up. I mean, if this happens, if this kind of thing is added in down the line, it's going to help in the long run, to prevent this kind of stuff from happening ever again, hopefully. I mean, it's one thing when you don't want to sign somebody to a contract because, they're toxic in a locker room, like let's say a Tessa Blanchard. Yeah, Tessa Blanchard has a reputation for saying things that she shouldn't and acting like she's better than everybody else because of who she's the daughter of. And, that causes a toxic environment no matter where she lands. But still, that's nothing compared to this. That is nothing compared to this. I mean, if you want to take Tessa and say, hey, clean up your attitude and everything, and you might get opportunities more so than ever before, that's one thing. Clean up your attitude. But she's never had, as far as I know, an issue where she gets pulled over drunk or, seen drunk or anything like that or pilled up. Never once. The only problem with her is her attitude. So her situation is nothing compared to this. It is like the bottom of the barrel scraps compared to this. And everybody watching this knows that to be true. They know that to be true. So her getting a job somewhere else is more likely to happen than Jeff would ever get a job anywhere else if he doesn't clean himself up. But again, this is why they need to put something into effect for all combat sports to where they say if you mess up once, you can't go anywhere else or be signed by anybody else unless you get yourself cleaned up. And if that company signs you, then they're going to be in violation of the agreement and face legal lawsuit. Something has to be done, and something like that I think would help in the long run to make that, a reality. Something has to be done. Because sooner or later, people like Jeff Hardy, Tammy Stinch, Jimmy Uso, and whoever else, they're going to get to a situation to where there's going to be everybody that tries to excuse them, tries to stand by the side, tries to say I'm going to help them, or tries to tell people they're going to help them and all that, sooner or later, those options are going to be gone because they're going to say, look, I've tried, you're on your own now. And that will be probably one of the more dangerous situations around. That'll probably be one of the more dangerous situations around. And I guarantee you this. Some people might say, well, Jimmy Uso, he's been, in this kind of violation 4 times, and yet he's employed. Yeah, because who's his cousin? The Rock. Who's his cousin? head of the table, Roman Reigns. And here's the deal, though. We know sooner or later that bloodline situation is going to die down. It's getting to the starting point of that happening right now as we speak. And the moment Roman loses one of his championships, if not both, and the moment the Usos lose one of their championships, if not both, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Jimmy and Jay are going to be taken aside. They're going to be brought into the offices of Nick Khan, brought into the offices of Bruce Pritchard, Vince McMahon, and they're going to say, hey, look, you know the bloodline thing's coming to an end, right? Right? You know that's happening, right? And they'll probably say, yeah, why? And I guarantee you, right then and there, Nick Khan, Vince McMahon, and Bruce Pritchard will be like, well, guess what? Once it's done and Roman, starts taking more time off, pretty much, goes away and comes back when he needs to be, you guys don't have the protection you have currently, which means if you screw up, any one of you, you're gone. I guarantee you, Vince McMahon, Nick Khan, Bruce Pritchard will not hesitate to pull the Usos in and say that since the bloodline thing is coming to an end soon and Roman's going to be gone more often than usual down the line in the future, that the protection they have right now will not be there anymore, and if they screw up just once, they're history. I guarantee you they will not hesitate to pull them in and tell them that. Which honestly would be the right thing to do. Because if the Usos value their time there, they value their time in WWE, they feel that one of the best things the company has to offer and everything, and Roman being their cousin is the only chance they have to be in the main event, the spotlight. I guarantee you, WWE, they will not be hesitant to do that, and that right there, hopefully, will motivate them not to do any more screw-ups, because if they do, WWE, to save their reputation, will not hesitate to fire them, or at least one of them anyway. But yeah, about that, my battery died. But yeah, like I said, this has to stop. This has to stop because sooner or later, something's going to happen. I mean, people already kind of see that Tammy is probably going to spend the rest of her life in prison. If she ends up being, not ends up, but does get convicted for what she's done. And Jeff's probably going to follow suit too. The thing is, again, the athletic administration, whoever is the National Athletic Administration that can make things happen, they need to put a stipulation in for all combat sports, entertainment, or whatever, that states that if you screw up just once in your career, with one promotion, that you're not only fired, but you can't sign anywhere else until you get yourself thoroughly cleaned up. And if one promotion, I should say, signs you and you're not thoroughly cleaned up, they will be in violation of the agreement and face legal lawsuit. Because this has got to stop, and it's got to stop now. It's got to stop now. Because again, like I said, if this kind of thing was in place a long time ago, there's a lot of men and women that passed that probably still be with us. And that's a fact. That is a fact. But it has to stop. It has to really stop. And hopefully Jeff, seeing himself on that police cam, probably seeing what his wife has to say about it, his daughters have to say about it, hopefully it wakes him up. And he does do exactly what he says. He gets the treatment that he needs. He needs that treatment that he needs. And when he comes back, hopefully he'll be cleaned up and everything, and will not have to deal with something like this ever again. And again, this goes back to what I said at the beginning. People will look at what's going on with a lot of these men and women that have left WWE or left certain places that make sure, hey, we're not going to let these kind of people, screw up ever again. They probably look at this and like, why does WWE let these people go, period? Why do they release them? Why do they say, hey, you want to go, fine, whatever? Why do they let them go knowing that there's a good chance they could screw up? Because a majority of the time, again, like I mentioned earlier, if you compare the two, and like I said, WWE's not innocent in this. We know that. But when you compare the two, WWE is more of a safer place than, other promotions have been that these same men and women have gone to. And that is something that shouldn't be. All promotions, all wrestling, mixed martial art promotions should have a drug policy. They should have something in their, in their statements that say, we do not tolerate this. Maybe, hopefully, Tony Khan now does that. Hopefully, he does put a drug policy in and say, hey, you screw up once, you're either fired or we're suspending you till you get help. And again, the only reason he did that, and I'm glad he did, was not only to save face for his company and himself because of all the scrutiny it's gotten in the past. Let's face it, because it has. But it's also because he wants to make good with the new bosses at Warner Media, so that there's no chance that if they see something like this, and he says, oh, well, Jeff's going to be fine, I'll let him come back and all that. They see this, it's not going to cause them to change their mind because he might decide, oh, I'm going to bring Jeff back anyway. He did this because he knows AEW, again, it's the right thing for him to do, don't get me wrong, but he did it mainly because to save AEW and his own butt, especially for the future on the Warner Media Turner networks. We know that. It's a great thing that he's doing it, and it's a great thing that he's saying, hey, we'll assist Jeff in any way we can to help him get better. That's great. But we all know that he did it to save his butt and AEW's butt. And that's a fact. That's a fact, and as I say in my newest series, that's a straight shoot. And this is even a video under the straight shooting series, okay, or the shooting straight series. This is just something I have to get off my chest, or something I just wanted to say, talk about. But the thing is, enough is enough here. Things have to change. They have to change for the better for Jeff, for Tammy, whatever that might be with her, for Jimmy, and for whatever. Because like I said before my battery died out there, you cannot tell me that WWE will not hesitate, because they won't. I guarantee you they won't. That the moment this bloodline thing starts to really die down, and it's in the beginning stages of doing so, it really starts to die down, guess what's going to happen? They're going to pull the Usos in to the office, and they're going to tell them that, the protection that they have or had, because of the association with Roman, that's going away very soon, and that because it's going away, they screw up just once their history. I guarantee you they won't be hesitant to do that, because they won't. They will not be hesitant. They will do it immediately, when things start to go downwards, if you know what I mean. But yeah, this has to stop, not just with Jeff, but with every person in wrestling. This has to stop. Period. And if it doesn't, that's on them. That's on them. But it has to stop. It has to stop. And if you're a wrestling company that signs these former talents from WWE, and you don't want WWE to look better than you, then you need to do what's best. You need to put up a drug policy. You need to make sure these people do some testing. You need to do the whole 9 yards. But most of all, whoever runs a national athletic administration that makes the rulings for all combat sports and all sports period, you need to type up a document, if you will, that a legal binding document, federal legal binding document that states that whoever violates the terms of this document, this stipulation that's added to all combat sports contracts, then that person cannot be signed to any other promotion after they're let go for violating from the other promotion. They can't be signed by any other promotion until they get better, until they get cleaned up thoroughly. And if one promotion does sign them without that happening, then that promotion's in violation and could face legal issue. Again, some has to be done. Has to be done, and hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, it'll be done soon. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment below, live chat during the premiere, super chats, super stickers I should say, are, open during the live chat. Also, super thanks will be enabled afterwards. But give me your thoughts, guys. What do you think has to be done to prevent this kind of stuff from happening ever again? Give me your thoughts below, and I am out.